our hope is that if this is the decision that the college chooses to implement, that it could be done in the midterm and not wait until the third phase. And then again, completing infrastructure projects, this would be where you would want to do whatever you can to enhance and improve the experience along 7th Street in conjunction with what might be happening to the property across the street. And I believe correct me if I'm wrong, Leo, I think you had the parking structure in your midterm phase. And I think from what we understand with the enrollment projections, that's about when it's needed. So the idea would be that if you're kind of addressing a lot of the major moves in this area all within the second phase, it's really going to give you an impact by the time you reach, 2018 or thereabouts. And then finally, I think bringing that one stop into place, building A, and keeping it at your front door would be a third phase project. Because after phase 2, the library is now over here, this is now vacated and available, and we are suggesting backfilling it with the computer information systems technology programs, again, to keep this plaza fairly activated. There's also room in this building to consider a multicultural center and a couple other auxiliary spaces as well. But our important principle here is to have uses that continue to activate this heart of the campus. One of the other suggestions that I know was mentioned, well, what about photography? Is that going to have to move to Berkeley? Certainly if you consider a consolidation, but if that doesn't happen, we have noted that what we would like to recommend here would be you have your arts building over here. As you need to free up space for the one stop, consider, sort of congregating some other visual arts programs in that area of campus. If it's necessary, demolishing portion of building A to balance the cap loads might need to happen in this phase. And then finally, considering constructing the new child care center, whether it's over here or it's replaced in its current location, and finishing out with all of the remaining buildings. Now, one of the things I want to mention is, as I mentioned in the beginning, pretty much every one of these buildings needs to be addressed. Not all of them have programs relocating or space needs relocating, but the building still needs to be upgraded and renovated. These projects, remaining projects such as, D and the forum buildings, they can be picked off at any time and funds permitting worked into any of the earlier phases because it's not requiring significant moves of programs or consolidation or reshuffling or reconfiguration of spaces. And then again, finishing out with remaining infrastructure projects and campus-wide landscaping and wayfinding as needed. And that's kind of the major elements for Laney.
Questions by the trustees?
Questions?
Question.
Trustee Guillen?
I noticed in one of the renditions there that with the new library, there didn't seem to be increased access to this side, I guess this side of the street. Access between the Laney campus, I see the cars speeding by there all the time. There's fences that are just torn down because people have just smashed them.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything like a pedestrian bridge or anything to kind of address the pedestrian circulation from the campus to this area.
I think what you might have heard Leo mention is looking at, you can kind of see it a bit here in this drawing, is looking at narrowing the street, reducing it to one lane in each direction, getting rid of the fence down the middle and that island the way it's currently constructed, and create some major crossing zones and landscaping, possibly with a crossing light, pending a traffic study, that would really start to slow down traffic trying to move through here and create a greater awareness of pedestrian crossing. So that is the suggestion that, yes, that street has to be addressed to create a better ability to cross back and forth here.
And just this is a different question, maybe I was including to this, but is this, so Beverly Pryor Architects did the master plan for Laney campus and it wasn't integrated with WLC. So can you just talk about the rationale for that?
Yes, WLC is the primary master planner for the whole process. And the Beverly Pryors are consultant to us, along with Moss, along with all of our engineers, and part of their role was to actually work specifically on Laney campus.
The rationale for that was that you had a team. You had a team of architects that has previously worked with the various campuses, like Beverly Prior, that did the Learning Art Annex. So the rationale was to bring them in since they were very familiar with the campus.
Trustee Ewan?
Thank you very much for the presentations. Can see a lot of work and thought has gone into them. I've got a whole series of questions, and I'll try to do them quickly and limit myself because I know other trustees have questions. But starting up at Merritt College, it looks like when you look at the whole thing, basically you propose to tear down or renovate every single building on the campus, basically sort of build a new campus entirely, swimming pools and science buildings and so forth. And I'm thinking this is something that's probably going to cost in the neighborhood of $300 million, sort of for starters. And I'm wondering whether when we think about Merritt College, and that kind of investment, whether we've dealt with a couple of basic issues for Merritt. One is the issue of transportation. It seems to me that that is a perennial limiting factor for Merritt College for our students getting up there. There is not easy access. You have to drive. Given that we are going to hit peak oil maybe this year, maybe next year, maybe last year, and oil is going to become more expensive, transportation is going to become more expensive. I'm just sort of wondering about the vision of Merritt College is expanding at 2.5% a year. And my second question in regard to that is, when we think about dorms up at Merritt College, now I went to an undergraduate institution that had dorms, and it was rural, which is much like Merritt. But I'm trying to think our students and, well, when you think about Merritt College and you think about being up there, it's not like it's this hopping urban center. And I'm thinking, okay, 300 students up at Merritt College in dorms, what kind of student life are they going to have? How in the heck are they going to get around except to all have cars up there? And I just don't quite, I don't know, somehow it just doesn't quite fit my image of what could happen there. And I'm wondering about the feasibility of that. Maybe it can work, but I'm kind of wondering about it. And then as we think about all of these structures on all of the campuses, whether you've done initial plus or minus $10 million cost projections for, each of these kinds of buildings, so that if we looked out to 2022, we know we've got some money in the pot right now. That's fine. What are we talking about having to go into the public for? Another $1 billion? Another $500 million? Do we have those sorts of basic cost projections there? And then the last thing that I didn't see on this was, and maybe you're going to get to it, is the total cost, the total cost of running the things. You build up a new building, art annex, for example. Now you need another custodian to take care of it. You've got insurance and so forth that Dr. Icaro mentioned. I've got others, but I'll stop right there.
Well, well, let me start with the discussion of Merritt. We actually are not really doing every building there, but we're doing a lot of them there. The student housing component is something that's been discussed, I guess, at length about one of the ways of addressing the needs at Merritt. Not only just for students that are away, but for students that are local. One of the comments that the president of Merritt has talked about is the issue of having students in East Oakland or West Oakland who need to get away from the environment they're in, just go to school. And there have been a lot of articles that I've seen actually in the last year about community colleges having dorms. So it's something that seems to be happening more and more on community colleges around the country. And yes, some of them are actually in rural locations where where community colleges have had dorms and have been very successful. And it's actually increased the enrollment from the studies they've done by putting dormitories on community college campuses. Because my first reaction is, it's only 2 years, so does dorms really work? But it seems to really work from the studies that have been done from those locations have actually installed dorms on the community college campuses. And in terms of the costs, yes, we've begun to look at those overall broad brush costs. We have essentially costs for each phase of each project that's there. And, rough order of magnitude is somewhere depending on, and this is variable because The majority of our third phase projects deal with